and building products that help you do that every day. We also want to help you free up time for your tech teams and your security teams to focus on what really matters. But to leverage and grow your business using that trust, you're going to have to be able to prove your security posture as well. Before Vanta, many SaaS companies were locked out of enterprise deal flow. They might not have had the $100,000 it would take to get a SOC 2 report, and they definitely did not have the year it takes to dedicate an engineering leader to preparing for an audit. Definitely not top of list for companies like that. But Vanta has completely disrupted this process. We've leveled the playing field, and we've helped you get compliant at a fraction of the cost and with 50% or less of the effort required to maintain compliance. As more enterprises move to the cloud, the economic opportunity here is massive. I'm really excited to welcome up to the stage Dhruv. He's the co-head of security investment banking for JP Morgan to talk a little bit more about this. Come on up. Okay, so not to put you on the spot, but we're going to start with the elephant in the room. The macroeconomic climate is a little weird right now. There's some things going on in the world. You've got a crowd here of really innovative builders, folks building SaaS tools. What are you seeing in the economy broadly, and what are the implications for SaaS businesses?
That is a fantastic question, Stevie. Truly a lot to unpack. I think I would start with three simple points. First, as we all saw through the pandemic, to keep the economy running, our world open effectively, a lot of stimulus was pumped through the overall system, both on the consumer and corporate side. That in turn has caused a fair amount of inflation over the last year or so, and the Fed has taken a page out of history and really pursued an academic approach of raising interest rates to help curb this inflation. So what does that mean overall for the valuation and equity market environment? Is that your overall cost of capital is now much more expensive. So it's more expensive to borrow money, it's more expensive to raise capital, and in turn, businesses have taken a more stringent approach to how they're actually deploying this capital. So what does that mean for all of you? What that means, and what a lot of our clients are saying, is that there's a lot more scrutiny on what you're actually buying from an IT perspective. The sales cycle is getting longer just because there's more scrutiny. It's going through several levels of approval to get things done. And so, you're seeing a little bit of a drop-off in growth, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, healthy businesses will continue to remain healthy. And I know this is all kind of doom and gloom, but there's some kind of bright spots to take out of this as well. So first, I would say that IT spend is not all equal. Certain elements of the IT stack will get cut before other elements do. And honestly, if you're very strategic in how you're spending, the last place that any organization is going to want to shut down is security and compliance. That is basically how your organization is going to run, how it's going to provide trust to its own customers. So if you're in and around that space, fantastic. The second piece I would note is if you take a look at organizations that have kind of grown through downturns or recessions, they have incorporated a little bit of muscle memory or DNA in how they fiscally approach the universe. And businesses, again, that are strong and healthy will continue to remain strong and healthy, and honestly will continue to take market share against other businesses that have not been run as efficiently. And then the third and last piece is, if you're selling to larger organizations, I think broadly speaking, they have not been as impacted by this drop-off in IT spend. It's usually more focused on the mid-level enterprise. Is kind of where you're seeing a lot of the pullback.
So this is a really good point that during a downturn, selling to enterprises gets really interesting. Enterprises aren't going anywhere. They've got the cash. They can still execute. And there's another related trend that's a little longer term that may be relevant, and that is the migration of enterprises to the cloud, which I think a lot of folks in SaaS think, of course, that was done years ago. Not true. They're still moving and making that migration. So what are some of the trends you see there, and what does it mean for folks who are building SaaS tools today?
Right. great question. So you're right, the great migration to the cloud, everyone's been speaking about this concept for years. And honestly, a lot of us thought that this migration to the cloud had concluded. Turns out it has not. Large organizations, even someone like our institution and our competitors, we work in a regulated environment. There's always going to be a hybrid cloud approach, but we are moving more and more to a cloud-based environment. And so what does that mean from an opportunity perspective for all of you? You can kind of boil it down to 4 main functional points. So if you're selling tools that help operationalize spend from a finance perspective, if you're helping with scalability and stability, so what I mean by stability is resiliency in your IT stack, and finally, if you're enabling security and compliance, these are all large opportunities that are going to be top of mind for any IT operator or CISO in a large enterprise.
So as a large enterprise, as you're buying tools and you're thinking about how to deploy capital over the next few years, I would imagine security and compliance is a big consideration. So how does an enterprise think about that, particularly in the current climate?
Yeah, there's a couple of key considerations, right? So one is really going to be around concentration risk, right? So it ties back to the resiliency point. So you don't want to, for lack of a better term, put all your eggs in one basket, right? You want to make sure that if something goes wrong in your back-end IT systems, you have fail-safes and automation and other policies in place to ensure your business is able to run as it should be. The other core component is really going to be focused on data governance and data security. So what I mean by that is we've all seen this proliferation of data over the last several years. There's a bunch of regulation that's being tied to this data. It's hard to stay abreast of that regulation. And there's been kind of more of a focus on localization of managing this data. So if you can come in and help organizations think through that and provide tools that enable data privacy, data security, and compliance, I think those are always going to be top of mind. The other 2 I would note is really going to be around automated compliance. And what I mean by that is, automated compliance and evolving compliance monitoring more on a consistent basis. And what I mean by that is, how do you ensure that you are always at parity with what's actually going on in the market? So as an example, today in the broader threat environment, we live in a unique world where you have nation states, you have very sophisticated criminal organizations and a whole host of other actors out there trying to interrogate your own IT enterprise. And then you have a bunch of compliance regulations that are being rolled out, whether it's monthly, weekly, yearly, semi-annually. You can choose your right cadence, and it's hard to stay on top of all these trends. And historically, the approach has always been, I'll call it point-in-time compliance or point-in-time security, which obviously has a significant amount of latency associated with it. So I think if you're able to deliver a tool that has automated compliance and security to an extent and is continuously monitoring the environment for you, externally, internally, and for all your constituents, you have a pretty healthy tool that is always going to be top of mind for large organizations.
Definitely agree with you. Here at Vanta, we're pretty passionate about that. I think a lot of folks probably think of compliance and innovation as antithetical and somehow at odds with each other. Do you see a role in innovation for compliance? Is it more than just a check the box, like a task people have to do?
Yes, you're right. It's compliance across the board, right? It could be compliance is related to how you govern your data. It could be compliance, and if you're falling into ADA standards to ensure digital accessibility for the world, right? Everybody has this mindset that compliance is stifling innovation, is stifling development, but that's not a trait. That's not true at all. I think at the end of the day, compliance is commercializing innovation, right? So when you think about yourself as an organization, and depending where you are in your own maturity, when you're selling to a large customer, making sure all those nuances related to your own data compliance and security are already taken care of is actually a competitive differentiator for you, right? So if you can imagine a large organization, how many tools for how many different categories do they see on a daily basis that are investigating as to which is the best tool for them. If 2 tools are a parity, but one is lacking on compliance, they're already at a disadvantage. So making sure that you are fully built with a compliance mindset first in how you deploy your products and a security mindset first. I think it shows a lot of maturity in a business, and enterprises will just embrace that over time.
I love it. Drew, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here today. And appreciate the partnership. Thank you. You heard it from Drew, and I know a lot of you have heard it over time, this idea that historically compliance stifles innovation. It keeps SaaS companies and tools out of the enterprise and out of deal cycles. But Vanta is here to change that. I'm really excited to tell you today that we now support almost 20 of the most sought-after compliance frameworks in the market, so we can help you stay competitive and meet the needs and requirements of your buyers. That includes frameworks like the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or things like the AWS Foundational Technical Review, which, by the way, is required if you're going to partner with Amazon. Or it could be FedRAMP. I'm sure many of you know and love FedRAMP, a beloved requirement for doing business with the US government. So we support these and nearly 20 others. Vanta is also pioneering ways to prove your security well beyond a compliance framework. In June of this year, we launched Vanta Trust Reports. Trust reports are a proactive and interactive way to demonstrate your trustworthiness to your prospects and your customers. We've seen incredible adoption in just a few months. Our customers have sent more than 1,000 trust reports to their own customers, prospects, and partners to prove their security posture. And hundreds of companies have actually used trust reports publicly as a public demonstration on their website of their security posture. Our customers, Lumos, Ice Panel, and Qualified, have used trust reports in this way. And the results have been equally impressive. We actually hear from our trust report customers that these reports are helping them accelerate deal cycles by 30% or more, which is pretty incredible. Today, I'm excited to share with you how Vanta is thinking about the next chapter of security proof from the ground up, and that's Vanta Verified. Vanta Verified is a shared interface of trust between software buyers and software sellers, one that's proactive, interactive, and continuous. We believe that Vanta Verified is going to unlock the opportunity that Drew was talking about for all of you by giving enterprises a single real-time view of the security posture of all of their vendors in their technology ecosystem. Vanta is already working with some of the most trusted brands in technology, financial services, healthcare, and other industries to help secure their technology ecosystems. To tell you a little bit more, I'd love to welcome up Flea. Flea is Gusto's Chief Security Officer and a Vanta Verified customer. Come on up. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, at least the hair is accurate in this picture.
That's right, you match. Well done. So happy to have you here and always so grateful for your partnership. I would love to just hear from you. What are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing right now? I'm sure it's a lengthy list, but what's at the top of the list for a chief security officer right now?
You've already touched on some of the primary things. It really is that idea of the ecosystem. It used to be, like back in my day, like as you can tell, I'm a little gray beard up here. It used to be like, oh, you had a company that was essentially an island. That island is now connected to everybody. And those pathways and those ships that travel between those islands are carrying all kinds of great things. It's carrying produce, it's carrying, people, all this happiness, but it's also carrying rodents. And it's also carrying, these things that actually are bad for your infrastructure. And that's actually one of the major shifts that have happened, in particular now that we kind of are assuming that society is SaaS first, even though there are some people who are, still have data centers, et cetera. And so that still just, makes this insurmountable, or at least very, really challenging risk to actually deal with. To coincide with that, though, and some of the reasons why we were so excited about Vanta Verified is because everybody is SaaS, it means that we can't build our product alone. And it means we do need to actually reach out and have good partners that can also help us actually deliver the product that our customers want and what that they deserve. But when you're dealing with partners, and especially in the case of Gusto, we take the security and privacy of that data literally personally. Like it's a personal offense to me if somebody, hacks into one of our customers' accounts and things like that. And so because of that, we're very picky and very selective about our partners. And so that means that, hey, if you want to be a partner of Gusto, we need to know that you're going to treat that data the same way that we would treat it. And we need to actually be able to actually constantly check on that, to actually make sure that you're being a good partner. Because in reality, good partnerships are built on transparency. That's how you start with trust. And by being able for both sides to actually share some of that, it also allows us, frankly, to do some deals that other people can't. And it's not necessarily because, the companies that we do deals with aren't, technically savvy from a security standpoint. It's just that often they have great security, but they haven't built out a compliance program. Right, and that's where Vanta Verified has actually come into play for us. We can say like, no, look, I've been in security industry for several decades. I won't say how many, but I've been in the security industry several decades. I know what good security looks like. My team knows what good security looks like, et cetera. And just because somebody doesn't have that piece of paper, does that mean we say no, even if they have a great product? If you're a good company, you figure out a way to actually say yes. And that's the reason why we actually reached out and, wanted to actually get involved with Vanta Verified.
Oh, I love it. I love the way you think about this, and I know you've been around in the industry for a while. You've worked at some very conservative organizations as well. Bank of America on that list,
Yes.
others. You've seen a lot of different angles on this. So how do you think something like Vanta Verified helps more broadly beyond the forward thinkers like Gusto?
I think it's even better for some of the larger companies and larger, I'm envisioning like me being back at Bank of America. And obviously, I'd be dressed very different. So if you've ever been to Charlotte, North Carolina, you already know the Charlotte, North Carolina, uniform. But, one of the things that's actually interesting when you can think about a company like Bank of America or Hewlett Packard, and things like that, they actually have pockets of innovation. And oftentimes when they say, hey, I can't do a deal with you, it's not because they don't want to, it's because the tools to give them that trust don't exist, right? And so when you think about, and actually I'll go back to my banking roots, apologies, JP Morgan people, I'm not a real banker. I was the nerd in the basement. But when you actually go back to some of the ways you actually think about banks, they love thinking about risk, and they love trying to find ways that they can manage risk better than somebody else. And so, when you think about, I used to work at a company called Twilio, this little communication startup.
That's
And-
funny, I did too.
You did? Wait, I didn't.
That's right, we have shared history here.
Yeah. So
Love it.
I was there like super early days.
You were original.
Yeah, no. Well, but you understand, like,
Yeah.
one of the things that Twilio is, we were trying to actually do business with people like Goldman Sachs or with Bank of America, was, hey, we didn't have that shiny piece of paper, but they actually knew us. And so them being able to say, okay, well, hey, we can actually do a deep dive, allowed them to actually do something that their competitors didn't, which gave them business opportunity that other people did not have. And allowed them to just claim a lot of space, all because they were actually thinking about risk the right way. They were thinking about risk as about something to manage, and risk as a spectrum, not risk as checklists or like these blanket requirements that may not even like fit the profile for the problem.
I love this, and you're hitting on the perfect topic, which is a lot of folks in security or compliance or beyond, often in IT, will think about compliance as a check-the-box exercise. You get it done, and you move on. How do you think differently about that?
Yeah, so, first of all, one of the things I've been really excited about, actually, it's crazy because I was literally sitting in the chair there and I was thinking, oh my God, like 5-10 years ago, could you imagine Flea being excited about a compliance product, right? Could you picture that? No, but I actually am excited, and it's because I do think that Vanta gets compliance and what it's actually really about. And when you think about what compliance fundamentally is and what it should be, compliance is helping guide you through your security journey, right? And compliance is also about telling the story of your security team and your security practices to other people. The reason why that's actually so great, and we actually think about it in that framework, is that compliance is no longer a cost center. Compliance is no longer a checkbox. Compliance is the thing that's actually leading security. And one of the things I've been excited about when I'm hearing some of you on stage is I'm not hearing you say security versus compliance. You're calling it security, and that's actually what it is. And that gets me excited because it also indicates you know what this is about and you know the value here. And so being able to actually think about your compliance program as being a driver for the business, and that's the thing that actually helps you open doors for you, helps open up deals, helps keep you out of danger. It helps you also manage risk, and when you can manage risk well, you can take bigger bets, and you can be more confident in those bets, and you can actually have a bigger reward from them.
That is awesome. I love the way you say it, this idea of compliance is the story you tell of your security. Yeah. It's fantastic. So you've got a lot of folks from SaaS companies in the audience. You've been there, done that. What advice do you have for this audience today? Like, what would you tell other founders, builders, people who are grappling with security and compliance in a really dynamic environment?
Oh, wow. Well, one, and this is going to sound self-serving. I promise you, I'm not paid by Vanta. I'm not a shell. But I was so excited that I actually got up and actually, got in my car and drove over here. One of the things I actually would tell SaaS people is actually find that good, trusted partner. I've had a number of, opportunities and to work with early stage startups and things like that. And one of the things actually I tell them is your biggest risk right now is not building the right product. And it's not that, obviously, I love security. I'm like literally straight up like a stereotype, dressed all in black, et cetera. But, even having said that, I tell people, like, oh, you're too early for a security team. You need to actually have engineers, you need to have a great product, and you need to actually follow good best practices. And so to actually go out and find something that can help you do that. So, for example, I would be very confident in like recommending to one of my startup mentees or something like that. It's like, hey, look, you're not ready for a security team, but heck, go check out this product, because it actually has some things in there that can help you actually walk through this. And if you can use this product, then you can also get deals. And there are deals that you may have been shy about at first. Like I remember, like I said, I'll go back to Twilio days or even further back, like Fortify days and things like that, where it's like, hey, we didn't feel like we were ready to have these conversations with some of these large organizations because we didn't have the papers.
Right.
But it turned out that we actually were. We were tall enough to ride the ride, right? We weren't 8 years old, but we were tall enough to ride the ride. And because of that, it shifted how we thought about it. We said, hey, wait a second, we can actually give you the attestation you want. We can actually show you some of the security things we're doing. And it turns out, especially those of you that are startups and SaaS companies, often you are doing security better than the people that are asking you for these certifications. And some of the things that you're doing aren't actually keeping up with the certifications. And that's actually one of the things that I like about Verified. It's like, hey, actually, I'm still a nerd. I literally, I have a home lab, like my home automation runs on Kubernetes, the whole deal, right? And so I can actually have that conversation. I can actually look at that data and say like, yeah, you know what? And no offense to assessors and auditors, it's like, hey, yeah, this assessor and auditor may not have given you a pass net, but actually I understand what you're doing. And I can actually see that in the data. I understand what's going on in AWS. I understand how your VPCs are connected. I understand how ingress and egress works. And because of that, you can show me that, and now we can do a deal. Previously, you didn't have that. And that actually is something, especially for those of you that are founders, et cetera, don't be shy about trying to get that deal with Google or with Amazon or with whoever, because you might actually have it there. And it's just a matter of getting somebody to help you tell the story. And if you can get somebody to help you tell the story of your security program, that's going to help you get deals. That's going to help your customers gain and keep trust with you, and also helps your partners want to be a strong partner with you. And that's actually one of the things I think is interesting about Vanta and Vanta Verified, is that you literally, there was actually even a thing up there. You actually like, hey, you click this little button, and we're actually going to tell you the story about your infrastructure. Being able to actually tell that story about compliance is what people understand, and every company's security has a story to tell. And when you can actually get a good platform that helps you showcase that, obviously, I'm the product of Mississippi public education. So trying to be like, hey, being an author is not in my, in my future. But I have tools like Grammarly, right? And it can help me and things like that and tell that story. And when you can actually find these tools that can help you tell the story, I think it's actually one of the bigger things. And you will find that other enterprises will respond to that.
That is awesome. That is great advice. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
You rock. Thanks, Philippe.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
We are extremely excited, along with Flea, about Vanta Verified, and this is just the beginning. You can imagine all the applications for Vanta Verified. Accelerator programs or VCs who want to benchmark their security posture of their portfolio versus peers. Or an app store who wants to make sure their catalog is full of trusted apps. Or legacy businesses that just want to speed up innovation and move to cloud-native tech because they now feel confident they can do that without sacrificing security. We're really excited to share more over the coming months about our partnerships and Vanta Verified. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Christina.